We're getting a sign-up sheet out for House Bill 213 and House Bill 132. I apologize for the delay in getting started. We've had a rather boisterous retirement committee bill, and I just got beat all the pieces in there, so I'm not going to be in a happy mood right now, just to let you know. All right, has everybody come up and signed up? We're finishing our sign-up list. Got them up front. All right, we're going to get started. I've asked Representative Mitchell, Billy Mitchell, to lead us in a word of prayer before we get started. Bow your head.
Heavenly Father, we take this very opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to deliberate on the people's issues. We ask that you give us wisdom, and certainly that we carry the day that will be pleasing in your sight on this day. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Mitchell. All right, we got two bills we're going to bring before us today. I told the authors that we're going to hear these bills today. We'll see how the committee feels at the end of the hearings before we take a vote or not. We're going to take the issues. I understand there's people signed up on both bills. I've got, and I had told Representative Stevens, I think he's got somewhere else to go, that I would let him go first. So hopefully you can make yours a little quicker than we're going to be looking at this other one. If you'd come on up, Representative Stevens, and present 213 and tell us what's going on with this bill.
What House Bill 213 seeks to do is prevent the nationalization primarily of most of our accreditation process through the boards of pharmacy. The national boards is trying to create another layer of government, another piece of the onion, so to speak, more cost, more fees. All this does is just basically said, if you look on the back page beginning on line number 34, basically says only pharmacists registered in state and maintaining an active license in good standing and under the authority of the board is eligible to conduct accreditation inspections of pharmacies located within the state. Bottom line, there is a friendly amendment that will be offered, and I have no objection to the amendment.
Questions for the author? Now, let me go back. Thank you all for being in here. We need a bigger room. I apologize for us not having a larger room. Everybody can't seem to find a seat. But thank you for your interest in our committee. I know we got a lot of folks here dealing with a lot of different industries. We're just looking at two regulation bills today. Nothing dealing with alcohol, all at firearms, nothing like that. So, but thank you for being here. I failed to recognize folks. Number 3. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Stevens, just as an inquiry, can you explain again what the purpose of this bill is?
The National Boards of Pharmacy is beginning to start an accreditation process over and above the accreditation that's already standardized in the state of Georgia. And we see it in the state of Georgia as just nationalizing what seems to be a trend anymore of moving some of this accreditation strictly to a national level. We believe that we ought to keep that. It's one of our state's rights. We ought to keep that in the state of Georgia.
Would this provision be unique to Georgia, or are there other states that are doing the same thing?
There are other states that are doing the identical the identical thing.
Now, would this, what kind of impact would this have on pharmacies or like national pharmacy chains,
No.
or Walgreens or any of those guys?
None.
Would they not be able to provide a national accreditation that would be standard across the country for all of the pharmacists that work for them?
They can still do that as long as as the board approves in writing. There's no problem whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
The question I would have would be if we're making a law that would contradict federal law, or is this just a federal board or a national board?
This is a national board. It's not federal law at all.
It's not federal law or anything.
No.
Okay, thank you.
It's a PAL gap.
Let me ask a question before the people come up and speak on this, for or against it. I've read this thing several times, and if I read starting on line 16, this paragraph, and I'm going to take out the underlining part, and I'm going to ask a question about the underlining. This paragraph specifically prohibits inspections or examinations of board registrants or any requirement which forces board registrants to allow inspections or examinations or both of their records by representatives for any non-government affiliated private organization for any purposes. What you're adding in here is, okay, the gathering of information by third-party insurance companies, pharmacy benefit managers companies, or other such companies. Now, what are some of the examples of these companies that you're prohibiting now from coming in, other than you said national boards? Are they the HMOs, or I'm just trying to get a handle on what other companies we're excluding here.
They won't have a problem after the amendment. That will be offered in just a moment.
Okay, but we're going to offer an amendment to take some of this language out.
To exempt, yes.
To exempt. Okay. All right. Well, maybe that'll answer my question then. And then only pharmacists registered in the state. Boards that come in now that go in and examine pharmacy records, making sure that everything's been in compliance, prescriptions filled or signed properly, right prescription pads and all that. They are actually inspected by pharmacists in the state of Georgia now, or are you just trying to limit that?
That is correct. They're inspected and certified by pharmacists in the state.
That's what's going on currently.
Currently. And
you're just specifying on the second page, then lines 34 through 36, that that's what's going to continue. Is that correct?
Exactly.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Chairman?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee.
All right. We have 213. Skin Edge, would you come up and tell us what's on your mind, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Skin Edge here on behalf of CVS Caremark. Most of you are familiar with CVS pharmacies, retail pharmacies, but Caremark, which is also part of that company, is a pharmacy benefit manager. I spoke to Representative Stevens about this bill, had some questions about what his intent was, and I think he and I had talked about some language to an amendment we want to propose for the committee's consideration that I think will hopefully address a lot of the concerns. We are suggesting on page 2, line 29, after the word registrants, inserting language that says, provided, however, the provisions of this paragraph shall not apply to audits conducted by third-party insurance companies, pharmacy benefit management companies, or other such companies. Period.
He's around the corner from the pole from you.
To insert that language. So the concern we had is we legitimately, and we contract with pharmacies to do audits to make sure that the prescriptions have been filled properly, been paid properly, that type of thing. And without the amendment, we would not be able to do that work. And that's something that Representative Stevens says was certainly not his intention. And but we think this clarifies it so that we can come in and do the audits which are called for under our contracts with our clients and the pharmacists.
Okay. Any questions for the? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps you may have some insight. Do you have a perspective on what exactly the problem is? I mean, we're attempting to change state law. I'm just trying to get a handle on what's the problem.
Representative Flood, frankly, I was not aware of any such problem until Representative Stevens dropped the bill and we discussed it very, very briefly. So I'm afraid I really can't address that. The national group that he's speaking of, I'm just not familiar with that. I'm sorry.
Further question for you. Again, other than the audits, is there any other impact on national organizations like CVS or Walgreens or any of the other national chains?
Not that I'm aware of at the present time. The audit is one of the primary functions that we do in terms of interacting with the pharmacies themselves. Now, whether or not there's some other issues that may come to light as this moves through the process, I don't know. I'm sure that's something that if they do, we'll discuss that with Representative Stevens. He has been open and amenable to this amendment, and we appreciate that very much. And I'm sure if there's some other issues that we need to deal with that are legitimate requirements or functions of the PBMs, the insurance companies, I would hope and I would expect, knowing Representative Stevens as I do, that he would be open to dealing with that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I can't shed any more light than that.
I guess I have another question for Representative Stevens. Based on the history, this has been conducted as a Georgia function for how long? I mean, years, forever. Okay, and that's still you're still under the whatever I would call the DEA or whatever, you know, this superseding federal law still regulates pharmacy industry, but this is just basically keeping it on a state level rather than ceding the authority to a national level. Is that correct?
I think our legislative council, you can get the language for the amendment clarified so you can have that. Okay, can you state that language again,
Yes,
Mr. Edge?
On line 29 of page 2, after the word registrants, provided a new sentence, provided, however, the provisions of this paragraph shall not apply to audits conducted by third-party insurance companies, pharmacy benefit management companies, or other such companies. That's consistent with the language on page 1. Ledge council feels like there's a better place to put that. I'm certainly open to suggestion, but it looked like that might be an appropriate place.
Anything else for Mr. Edge? Did you get that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Robert Highsmith. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Robert Highsmith, and I represent Express Scripts, which is the other large pharmacy benefit management company that provides management of the pharmacy benefit for almost 1/3 of Americans, works for large employers who provide self-insured health insurance, also has clients that are large health plans and state government health plans, and in some cases Medicaid assistance plans, although not in the state of Georgia. We're between us and CVS Caremark, we have the overwhelming bulk of the pharmacy benefit management in the country. Although unlike CVS, we don't operate pharmacies themselves. We have a very large retail network of pharmacies, and CVS is in that network, as a matter of fact. So if you have Express Scripts is managing your pharmacy benefits, you go to a CVS to get your prescriptions filled. The concern that ESI has is the exact same that Mr. Edge alluded to, and we certainly support the amendment. I'm also a little concerned, Mr. Chairman, about the language that, so if you look at the existing law in line 29, where it says nothing in this paragraph shall prohibit the pharmacist in charge from voluntarily allowing appropriate agencies to examine records, it's under that provision of existing law that, as Mr. Edge alluded to, pharmacies can contract with pharmacy benefit management companies to allow access to information, of course in compliance with HIPAA and privacy, all the other privacy laws and that sort of thing. But the language at 29 and 30 limits that permission to hospital pharmacies, home health pharmacies, and specialty pharmacies, and then it goes on to say that permission has to be approved by the Board of Pharmacy. I'm hopeful that the amendment that Mr. Edge suggested, Mr. Chairman, and that the sponsor is amenable to would also supersede that new language, but we are concerned, and I haven't only had a very limited amount of time to study it, Mr. Chairman. We're concerned that having to go to the Board of Pharmacy to get permission to get information from pharmacies as we manage that pharmacy benefit might well be problematic. I understand that that's not the sponsor's intent. The intent is to make sure that people doing accreditation examinations are Georgia licensed pharmacists, and that piece of it is not something that that specifically concerns ESI. But those are some of the concerns that were raised in our analysis of the bill this afternoon. And the other concern is that in Medicaid, it's already appropriate under this bill and existing law for Medicaid and other government agencies to gather information. But as you know, we have private care management organizations that provide Medicaid care management in Georgia, and it's not abundantly, I defer to the Department of Community Health, of course, but it's not abundantly clear to me that those private companies would not also have to get permission from the Board of Pharmacy to gather information under this provision. So those are some of the concerns that our quick analysis this afternoon revealed, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Highsmith, any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Stevens, you want to come back and address any of those issues for us, or see if we could clear this up? Well, I have a question for you also.
Chairman, I believe the amendment pretty much covers everything that we're doing here. And the intent, as we move along this process, is to make sure that we don't have somebody supersede the authority of the Georgia State Board of Pharmacy, which it's doing today in certification and accreditation. That's all that the intent is to do. We don't want to impede any of the things that there may be reasons for investigations. None of that stuff is. In fact, we've tried to explicitly exclude that, but I think the amendment pretty much handles that. But as we move along, if there's anything at all that limits the ability of these PBMs or these insurance companies or third parties of any sort to get the information they need, then I'll be more than happy to amend it.
Okay. Let me ask a question again on and this may be just because I'm ignorant of the way it's done now, but back in the section 1 where you're talking about the third-party insurance companies, pharmacy benefit management companies, other such companies, prohibits them from doing this, but then the amendment on line 29 says, providing, however, that we allow some of these same companies to do that. Is that?
We're specifically trying to get to the accreditation process for the pharmacies, indeed, and just that other layer of accreditation, not the information that they're trying to get at all. And if they are trying to accredit, then fine, go through the pharmacy board. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Okay, you're dealing with the audit process, auditing the records. Okay. All right, what I think I would like the committee to do today is, we've had the hearing on this bill. I would like to get a clean copy of this. I'd like you to get with the other gentlemen, make sure Mr. Highsmith's group are satisfied with the amendment. If you do that, get this redrafted as an amendment with our legal counsel, and we'll go back and relick this cap again next Wednesday.
Good.
That'd be all right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Is that all right with the members of the committee? Thank you, sir. All right. We will bring that one up again next week when we have the amended copy and have a chance. Try to get that to us pretty early. We'll go over that. All right, Representative Hawkins, come and share with us, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. I bring before you once again House Bill 132, substitute to House Bill 132. You should be working off LC 33-5047S. That's 5047S. This bill, as we discussed last time, is about the moving of boards, dental board and pharmacy board, from the Secretary of State's office to the Department of Community Health. This is not a creation of new boards. These are the present boards, and I'm going to go through parts of this bill and especially point out the new sections of this new substitute. I've got a board member here who's been president of the dental board under 4 governors, or 4 times. He served on that board for 21 years. I'm going to, with the indulgence of the chairman, let him come up and speak and have him stand here for any questions. I want you all to feel very comfortable asking questions. I think it's very important that this thing is vetted well, so if you take a vote today, you feel very strong about your vote, feel very confident in your vote, because this is a very much needed bill. All right, let me go ahead and begin. Let me tell you, and I know a lot of y'all have read this bill, and we've had discussions on the sidebar about this bill. So if you'd like, I'd go to where the changes are so you can note it in your bill that you have now. Is that what you would like, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Let's look at that.
Okay. On page 6, you will note on lines 43 through 44, there's a strike, and I do not believe that strike is in your page 6. Mm-hmm. Lines 143, 144. Oh, you know something? I apologize. I can't go by pages because my bill starts with page 2, so I'm going to be off the page. Let's just go to the lines. Go to line 143, 144. There's a strike of wording there, and what has been taken out is "and noticed in hearing within the meaning of such chapter should not be required."
Did y'all find that?
Okay.
Well, you got 33-5047S?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't believe that Leg Council had that in your bill. So let's go to the addition. The addition on line 147, relevant has been added there. Relevant's been added, so when on 147, first word, relevant. Okay. Yeah.
You must have printed yours out of your own computer or something. I don't know.
This bill has been vetted by more attorneys than I've ever seen at this Capitol on every floor of this Capitol. They have worked very hard in Leg Council to get this put back together again. Proceedings. Okay, line 147, subpoena any relevant book. On line 147, relevant after any has been added since your substitute that we came before you last time. Relevant was added because it limits fishing expeditions. Okay, there was no intent of having fishing expeditions, but that was a suggestion that was added. We have the same word added again on 213, line 213, any relevant writing. That's another addition. On line 221, let's see, on this one, 223, notwithstanding the provisions of this subparagraph, that was added at the request of some of our members. Now these are additions because we did have some members of our body that had concerns about the breadth or the width of this bill. Okay. Okay, another addition, relevant again. on line 238. Okay, again, limiting the scope of information being sought by the board. On line 339, I believe. Let me get over there. Excuse me, 399. Again, any such payments of services received, oh, this is new. Any such payments of services received by the agency shall be deposited into the general fund of the state treasury. Okay? The board of pharmacy hadn't been keeping the money and dispersing the money. All the money it receives goes into the general fund, but this specifies clearly that that's what happens. Okay? Then, let's go to line 773. Again, notwithstanding the provisions of this paragraph, again, it goes back to discovery, and well, actually goes back to the safety of the information. That would be line on yours. Notwithstanding, let's see, 773. Now, this is totally off on this one. I'm sorry, but we have another edition of that. This was by Representative Seltzer. That edition was requested. Let me see. I'll direct it directly to it. B1. 733. Okay. I apologize. It's 733. Right. Line 733. Notwithstanding the provisions of this paragraph. Okay. Then on line 775, board proceedings that result in the voluntary surrendering of a value to renew license.
But talking, I'm gonna stop you here. I think we've got a lot of appears to be some different areas that you're looking on one thing, we're looking on another one.
I'm giving the lines now, so I think we're congruent. But that's fine because I only had one more, and that's post certification on line 844. Peace officer.
We're gonna have to have a lot of talk about this bill right here. I tell you what, I want to go ahead and hear from those that are in favor and those that are against the bill right now.
Okay.
And then bring you back up. You go
Okay.
through here and look at this again. We're going to have you present the whole thing to us so we can get a good understanding of what's going on, because these changes, I thought we could go through and the
Well, we
original
did.
copy I had was
That's all of
striked
it.
out.
That's all
Okay.
of it, Mr. Chairman.
But we're going to have to go through the whole bill and look at the whole bill again, I think. But let me get the speakers that are here in favor of it and against it. Let's have their presentations, and then we will probably have to digest this thing a bit more. Yes, sir.
I was just going to ask the chair or the presenter of the bill is when did this get created, and do the other folks have a copy of it? Because I had somebody go to your office earlier this morning, and this is not the copy.
It didn't come out till about 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Do other folks out there have copies of it?
I don't know. That's
Okay. And I don't want to hurt the gentleman's the bill at all, but I am real concerned because I did get some calls this morning that folks are being asked to even testify about a bill they don't know
right.
what's in it, and I will give the gentleman a fair hearing. It's not your fault. You're making sausage as fast as you can make it, but I do think it's fair for folks to get that before they have an opportunity to comment on it. Well, but they're ahead of me then, because I couldn't get one prior to the meeting.
Well, if no one's comfortable with where we're standing at this point, maybe we need to just postpone hearing on this bill to a later date, let everybody have a chance to look at it. I'm sorry if everybody's come down, but the bill did get out late. It didn't get out till 12:30 or 1 o'clock. And I want everybody to be comfortable with what we're doing on this. And if the committee is not comfortable in having a chance to look at this, I'm not comfortable with us moving it forward at this point in time. So, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll go ahead and hear testimony from anybody that wants to go ahead and testify today. We've got people signed up to speak, so let's do that. But we're not going to take action on the bill today. I want to make sure the committee's had time to look at it. People in the audience had time to vet this out, because I was concerned, and I was talking to Representative Hawkins this morning at 8 o'clock saying, where's the changes, we got to get this out. And he did work it just as fast as he possibly could, because there was some meetings he tried to do this week that got postponed with some folks till yesterday afternoon at 2 o'clock. All right, we're going to have Dr. Steve Holcomb, if you'd come up. And let me ask the gentleman in the back that's recording this on the cell phone, what's the purpose of this going on? Oh, Secretary of State's office. All right. Didn't know you were here doing that. All right, Dr. Steve Holcomb, are you here, sir? Come right up, sir. It's being recorded somewhere, I think. Okay. So it should be available. Secretary of State's office needs to see this on the website. Yeah, get our good side. All right, Dr. Holcomb.
I'm here to answer whatever questions you may have. Obviously, there seems to be some confusion on what lines and what pages. I can speak more generically to it. I can answer any of the questions.
Just speak generically to what you're trying to, what you see we're trying to accomplish in this bill.
Well,
what
we're trying to accomplish in the bill, and of which not only is the board in support of this, but so is the dental profession, some of the licensees that we do serve. To come out from underneath the umbrella of the Secretary of State and into the Department of Community Health, which would place us more congruent with the medical board. Many of the complaints, investigations, licensing issues that we have are very, very similar to the medical board, and varies and differs considerably from many of the other 36 boards that are under the Secretary of State. One of the issues that we've had over the years, and I think the gentleman's already said what my credentials are, so I won't bore you with that, but I've been around the board for a long time and seen a lot of the changes. I have seen over the years an increasing difficulty for us to be able to do the job that we were appointed to do, and that's to protect the public. We're not able to do the appropriate investigations in a timely fashion. We have lack of staff, and I understand all of this is budgetary issues that impacts that budget. Revenues are not necessarily our purview. That rests with the legislature and how that's dispersed. I do know that our generation of what we produce far exceeds that which is allotted to us, and how that should be allotted, at least under the Department of Community Health. I think we would have some access to input into the budgetary process to support the board, which we do not exercise now, and really have no idea about it. In fact, sometimes it's very difficult to even get budgetary and indirect cost information. Now, it has been provided as of recently, but I can tell you over the past years it was literally, no pun intended, like pulling teeth. It was very difficult. The board, in order for us to function, we have to have appropriate staff support that we have not had. And as I mentioned, we have, I know for a fact that we have spoken with 4 separate Secretaries of State. And many times, although on most of those we did receive a sympathetic ear, it seems like we got cut even further, even more so. And sympathy does not help us to protect the public. And I can answer specifics about where we need to go with this. I would like for the committee to be more informed and have the opportunity to review the bill and its changes so that I could respond to specific questions and that you might have regarding that. But at the current state, we don't have the appropriate staff. Our executive director is responsible for 6 other boards. The life criticality issues that we deal with, similar to the medical board, are significantly greater than the others, and we need to be able to respond in a timely manner. Whether it's through the investigations, the quality of care issues, drug diversion, whether it's violations of moral turpitude or whatever, we need to be able to function with that. We need to respond in an appropriate time period, and we're restricted right now. I think that the Department of Community Health would give us a greater opportunity, greater input into the process, and enable us to be more efficient utilizing that. The board is also responsible for establishing the appropriate fees, licensure fees. And we understand that going into a different umbrella may cause additional cost to be for software, hardware, staffing, etc. We understand that. And the board is certainly willing and understands that they would need to readdress the licensing fees to increase the revenue, and then in the wisdom of the legislature, how that would be budgeted out would be up to y'all. But we understand that that would be a necessary side effect. So, what else can I offer? Any other information?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doc, how many licensed dentists are there in the state?
Just over 6,000.
Dental hygienist?
About the same. We licensed approximately 13,000 plus.
Current license fees for a dentist
is $175 every biennium.
And a hygienist?
$85 every biennium. Based on the latest budget figure, I didn't mean to cut you off, sir, but based on the latest budgetary information I've seen, we just about double in revenue what we require in expenses.
You're the chairman of the board?
No, sir. I'm a past president of the board. Current president is Dr. Barry Stacy.
Could you address the issue? I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
I know the situation down at the licensing board. Out of all of these, the director and the staff and all that, the one thing that I am concerned about, and that's the investigatory staff.
Yes, sir.
Y'all's isn't exactly the same one that would, the investigations for your profession wouldn't be exactly the same as it would be for other licensees.
Well,
and could you tell me a little bit about
the investigatory staff? Actually, from my understanding, is a pool. Now, where there may be some investigators in that pool that have greater knowledge of dental semantics, but we don't have dedicated, fully, and it's not to take away from these individuals because they do the best of what they can, but we don't have people that deal solely with the dental board. And we do speak a different language. We do have different issues, as what I think you're alluding to with some of the other boards. The investigative process is completely different.
Can you tell me, and I understand the association, could you tell me, as to your knowledge, as the dental hygienist, do they have a separate association?
A separate
separate
professional association?
Professional association?
Yes, sir. They do have a professional association.
Do you know, for the best of your knowledge, have they been included into this and brought into this mix about what this would do, move them over also?
All I can tell you is about the composition of the board and the board's support of this bill. As far as having my finger on the pulse of the hygiene professional association, which does not represent the majority of the hygienists in the state, are not members, I should say. Mm-hmm. We have a separate hygiene committee on our board that's chaired by a hygienist. And so she is responsible for all the input to the board. She is a full voting member of the board and does not act as an advisory member. And understand, in the state of Georgia, dental hygiene as well as other dental auxiliaries are under direct supervision of the dentist. The dentist is ultimately responsible for all activities and all procedures, and of those responsibilities delegated to those auxiliaries, including the profession of dental hygiene.
Any other questions for Dr. Holcomb? Doctor, thank you for taking time to be here with us today.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Secretary Kemp, I'm going to ask you to come up and share with us, if you would, sir. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and all due respect to your time, our attorney has not reviewed this newest draft. We just got it 45 minutes before the hearing, and certainly we would appreciate some more time to review the changes of the bill and make sure that we understand what they mean. I had some other comments I was going to present today, but out of respect to Representative Hawkins, I'd be willing to reserve those to make sure that we know what we're looking at as well and answer questions to the committee if they have any.
Well, thank you, sir. Any questions now for our Secretary of State? Sir, we appreciate you being here. Oh, we got a question.
I apologize to the chair. I was in an appropriations meeting, came over in the midst of his meeting. I didn't make that apology earlier. We're talking about the dentistry board, and the gentleman presented dentistry, but the whole first section of this bill talks about the board of pharmacy.
About what? I'm sorry.
The Georgia Board of Pharmacy.
Right. Okay,
and can you tie that in for me in terms of?
Well, the under our structure, we do the administrative work for 40.
Several of them.
Yeah, over 40 boards that license over 300 different professions. Dental and pharmacy are part of that, as well as everything from accountants to wastewater treatment operators. I mean, it's extensive. So the board of pharmacy and the dental board are both part of that current structure under the licensing division that we have in Macon.
The first portion of the bill is the pharmacy, and then we get to the board of dentistry as well. We just haven't had any discussions.
You're on if you'll get to talking to the mic.
Oh, I'm
Chairman.
sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're on if you're talking to the mic. We could all hear you.
And I guess the top of the bill on 3 and 4, it says the Georgia Board of Pharmacy and the Georgia Board of Dentistry, and we've just heard from the dentistry folks. What about are you going to also address the movement of the pharmacy?
Well, I'd like to reserve my position. I mean, I was coming to stand in opposition to the bill, but I think it depends a lot on exactly what the bill's doing. There was talk about these two boards moving under, in the Department of Community Health. There's a lot of difference of being, under the Department of Community Health or being an attached agency of the Department of Community Health. And I think that's part of the issues that we have, and still, not having seen this draft but just a few minutes ago, would rather reserve judgment on if the committee's not going to act today and let us look at that and go from there.
Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here, sir. Sir? I got a couple more people who want to talk if you don't mind. Okay, that's all right. Virginia Galloway. She left. All right. Well, my colleague is gone. Miss Elizabeth Apley. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Martha Phillips. Anything, Miss Martha?
I'm Martha Phillips. I'm the Executive Director for the Georgia Dental Association, and the reason I want to make the comments is because I want to make sure that when you read the bill, some of the questions I've been asked, I'd like to provide you with that information for you to have the context for when you read the bill. Some of you asked me who currently has disciplinary oversight over the board, and according to 43-1-17, the governor of the state of Georgia has disciplinary oversight over the board. The governor makes the appointments to the board. The governor is the only person who can remove someone from the board. While the Board of Dentistry and the Board of Pharmacy are attached to the Secretary of State's office, the Secretary of State's office only provides administrative support for the Board of Dentistry. They provide administrative support too, I believe, for the Pharmacy Board. What we're asking for is to be transferred to not a new agency, not more government, but to be transferred to the Department of Community Health. And the reason we want to do that is we believe that we will have efficiencies there. and a better opportunity for administrative support. I have to say that Secretary of State Kemp has been wonderful to us. I mean, I really, when I sat in the budget committee and I listened to him make his case for his budget, it's amazing to me that he's able to do what he's able to do given the funds that he gets. But the problem is that when he asks for money for the Secretary of State's office, he's asking for all of the boards. And we then have to take our part of whatever's there. Now, he does the best he can to take care of the dental board, and we appreciate that. And when he introduced his super board bill 2 years ago, he excluded dentistry from that original bill. And I think we felt that he understood the issues that we were having. Quite honestly, the oversight under DCH would be exactly the same that it is with the Secretary of State. It would be administrative support only. The governor still maintains the control. We just feel like that our voice in budget request would be a little bit louder than it is when we're one of 43-something boards. And again, I can't do anything but commend the Secretary of State for the job he's been able to do with a limited budget. We understand everything has to go into general funds. The Dental Association supports an increase in the license renewal for dentists. And I've had a lot of people say, well, you know, Martha, what's in it for the dentist? And the truth of the matter is, it's not what's in it for the dentist, it's what's in it for the public. The board's total responsibility is to protect the public. What's in it for the dentist? If the bad actors get taken off the street and they can't hurt the public, every dentist has the benefit of not having patients harmed. We get painted with the same paintbrush that if it's one bad dentist out there and we don't take care of it, we all get painted by that paintbrush. So we care about the public, and that's our sole reason for this. Someone asked me, well, will you be better off under DCH? Well, we don't know. But we do think that it gives us an opportunity to be better off. No disrespect at all, but I don't think we can be worse off. And it's only because of the budget. It's certainly not because of the Secretary of State, because he could not be more understanding than he is. He's limited by the budget. We will be asking for a budget for the dental board. The pharmacy board will be asking for a budget for the pharmacy board. We will have a voice, and we'll have to live with whatever the legislators are willing to give us. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Executive Director Phillips? None at this time, ma'am.
Thank you.
Representative Hawkins, you will come back and share with us that again.
Thanks to the committee. I apologize about the confusion on the lines. I'm giving a bill that starts on page 2, and you got a bill that starts on page 1. But it's the same bill. And what we're talking about, the additions, were, again, the additional word relevant to help limit the scope of information obtained. It had to be relevant. This is on the pharmacy section. And also to address Representative Ed Seltzer's concern about the safety of information. And we've seen that in other bills that pertain to pharmacy and acquisition of that information. What's important here is that we're talking about not creating a new agency. This is not an attached agency to DCH. These are divisions going into DCH. We're not talking about hiring new administrative staffs and that type of thing. We're not talking about creating new government. We're talking about taking some folks in Macon and putting them over with the medical board, which makes sense. Let's get all the health folks together. We did that in the Department of Public Health, and we've seen the results. We need to do this with these two boards. This is about two things. One, a budget in the Secretary of State's office, which I am sympathetic to. But the main thing this is about is the protection of the citizens of Georgia. We got kids dying of drug problems. We got kids that have died in some dental offices. We got dentists they're not even dentists that are practicing, and we can't get to them because we don't have the folks to get to them. Now, I was president of the association in 2003, and we had those problems then, and we still got those problems now, 10 years later. We got to take a step forward. Now, let me just say a few things about the bill, and I think this will help you. And if you have any questions you want to ask me, and with the chairman's indulgence, please ask them, because this is very important. Again, this transfers the boards of pharmacy and dentistry to the Department of Community Health and changes the names of director of the board to executive director of the board. The board will become divisions of DCH, not attachments, not new agencies. It provides for investigators and investigative authority, which was under the Secretary of State's office, and now we'll move it to the board of Department of Community Health. It provides for actions of the boards in accordance to the Georgia Administration Procedures Act. You will see through this bill that it goes back and cites codes and titles over and over again where this information is coming from. You see underlined sections that are sections from other codes. There's been questions of subpoena power. Subpoena power has been noted in Title 16, in Title 23, and 43, and in 50. There's nothing new about these subpoena powers. This codifies and also clarifies sections by striking revisions to organize into one code section. And you will see that an example of that is things that have been moved and lines have been moved in 43-11-8 in the dental section, and they've come in from 43-11-7. There's no attempt by anyone, any board, or any attorney to put any more powers in this bill than what these folks have had. That's not what's going on here. Okay? This actually describes the functions and duties of the Georgia Drugs and Narcotics Agency. Two things in the head of the bill that tell you this is a change. One is they will be allowed to hire non-certified agents. Those are guys and ladies not carrying guns. That should be a savings. Okay? We may be able to use those agents on the dental board. We don't have agents. We don't need people carrying guns. This will help us save money. Let me just finish up. I could read some more things. Let me just finish up by this. A lot of this, I know, is asking you to go out on a limb and trust. Well, I'm trying to do my best so you don't feel that way. Okay? And like I said, the line confusion, I apologize, but it's just what I said. These are short bursts of things that make this bill tighter. It does not enumerate any powers. I've tried to address every issue of everybody that's come to me on this bill. I've spent more time in lawyer offices than I want to the rest of my life. You would think I've got a whiplash bill here. I've got so many attorneys working on this thing. But that's not bad. It's not a bad thing. This is important for us to get it right, because this is health care in the future, health care for many Georgians in this state. And I'll yield questions.
Questions for Representative? I just got a general question, and it was approached, the gentleman had to leave, but as far as cost savings or additional cost, do we look for this? I think you said hoping to be neutral. I know y'all have talked about the dentist of increasing fees, doubling fees. I don't know about the hygienist or what their plans would be, but
right.
Is it basically your intent for this to be cost neutral? I mean, I don't want to be about raising or creating more government. I don't believe we need to be doing that.
Right.
And you said we're just taking two areas,
two boards,
moving those over,
that's right.
Attaching or not
divisions, no attachment, no administrative. Right.
Okay. To the other
and
area.
I've talked to the commissioner of Department of Community Health, David Cook, about this. He has no problem. He's accepting these boards.
Okay. But you don't see basically a cost savings or a increase in cost in this one way or the other. Is there going to be an increase in cost when that
No,
moves
sir.
over?
I don't see any increase in cost at all. And if the dentists follow through on what they've pledged to do, there's going to be more money coming in the state.
Okay. I've generated a question now. I thank Chairman Martin. Well, I've lit up some lights here.
Mr. Chairman, I've got another committee at 4 o'clock, so I'll be brief. The question I asked you the other day was, does this expand a board's power?
Right.
That's sort of what I was asking.
Right, sure.
And you
sure.
answered it, and I think you answered the best of your knowledge and correctly.
Right.
I perhaps didn't articulate the full intent of my question. When I see things like, and you just went over this, Doctor, the Georgia Drug and Narcotics may employ people who are not special agents. I mean, that's more than just moving from one place to another. I mean, we're changing a policy. It may be a good one, but when we first talked about this and just moving from one place to another, we're changing something. Further down in here. And
that was in the original bill.
I understand that, and
right.
I asked
right,
the question,
right.
were we
and
doing things we weren't
bill.
doing before, and that's why I said perhaps I didn't articulate the question properly.
Yes, yes.
And it may be a good policy, so debate it now, and then you have the other one down here, to revise provisions relating to qualifications of applicants to practice dentistry. Well, what are we revising? I mean, is it we're revising it because it's being asked for under one board or another one, or if we're doing that, I would just like to talk to you, and I'll do it offline about what those revisions are, because I did get a phone call or two today, after this came up.
I understand.
And we'll do that offline, but that was what my question was meant the other day to do.
I understand.
And I perhaps didn't articulate it correctly.
Chairman Martin, we got a little booklet here from a group about three-tier systems. All right, Chairman Rutledge Ways. Any other questions this time? Chairman Powell.
I don't particularly have a question, Mr. Chairman, but I would like to just inject something, because this meeting's fixing to come to an end, because a lot of us got to get to another meeting.
Yes, sir, we're fixing to get out of here.
I'm very sympathetic to what you're asking for. This didn't just start under this Secretary of State.
No, sir.
This goes back 25 years ago on the old industry committee when we handled this stuff at that point. We knew at that time, and it was a growing problem then, and it has increasingly grown,
right,
that under this Joint Secretary's division, that all of these licensees are thrown into one, basically that administration. Money goes into the general fund, but when the budget process goes through it, they have consistently been cut time after time. Compounded all that when they got moved down to Middle Georgia. They got moved from up here. So this has been ongoing. This isn't just a problem from this Secretary of State, and it's not just a problem to your association. For years we have heard a lot of the professions that went out and basically set up their own freestanding association. We did it with the Board of Realtors years ago, so that we could control that and scrutinize the licensees in the state. What I would recommend is when this bill is heard next, that I think that we need to see some figures and to see if there has not been some dialogue between the proponents of this bill and the Secretary of State's office and the Budget Office to see how these ends are going to be met for a transition. And that's my recommendation.
Yes, sir.
And there needs to be some dialogue, because if there's going to be a transition, then there needs to be a proper transition of this process.
Thank you, Chairman Powell. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. Appreciate that. Before we leave, we've got some bills to be assigned to committee, and I've got a handout here from Fred Kitchens, the General Counsel of the Wine Wholesaler Spirit, that explains the three-tier system. If anybody'd like to have a copy of that, need a copy of it. Some of you guys are familiar with it. Some of us are learning the three tiers. Go ahead and sign the bills to
Chairman
committee,
Powell,
Mr. Vice Chair.
Chairman Powell.
Mr. Kevin, could you call Alan?
Chairman Powell.
Chairman Powell, I know you got to leave. We got some bills going to committee. Sit down here or
Chairman Powell,
let us get this done.
Just one sec. Okay. Chairman Powell, do you have a subcommittee meeting tomorrow? Is all I wanted to ask.
Subcommittee at 1 o'clock tomorrow for Chairman Powell's. 1 o'clock where? 5:06. 5:06 tomorrow at 1.
We have 3 additional bills to assign to committee. HB 301, which is going to go to Professions, Boards, and Commission. That's Representative Weldon. HB 313 and 314 will both go to Alcohol and Tobacco, Chairman Powell's committee, which are my bills. And I think that's all we got. And again, the Chairman Powell's subcommittee will meet tomorrow, 1 o'clock, 5:06, to consider HB 99, HB 137, and HB 185.
Thank you. Committee is adjourned.